wrong, Robin? Tired, dizzy?
I had a strange feeling, Batman. As if visions of sugar plums were dancing in my head.
They should be, Boy Wonder. It's almost Christmas. Ho, 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 ho.
Welcome to Gotham City, Mr. Claus.
Why, call me Santa Claus, Batman. Everybody else does. Say, you tell me where the Batcave is, and I'll leave a little present in your stocking.
If you can't trust Santa, whom can you trust?
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
Jingle bells, Batman smelt, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile lost the wheel, and the Joker got away.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here, and we're continuing our celebration during this Yuletide with our Days of Batmas. And we're going to continue on here now with an issue from Detective Comics number 77, way back in 1943. Can you believe it? And I'm joined to discuss this issue by an old friend of the podcast. You haven't heard him here for a while, but we're going to catch up on things. He is a filmmaker, and he's also the, I guess, would you say webmaster or moderator? Moderator is probably better, on one of the better Facebook groups for Batman 66, Mr. Robert Long. Hey, Robert.
Hey, good morning, John. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And I'm always messing it up. What is exactly the name of the Facebook group? We'll talk about it more at the end of the show as well.
Was it 1966, 1968 television or Batman television page or something?
There you go. That's it. Yep, that's it. Yeah. Because I mix up that, and I mix up the Subterranean Blue Grotto with Jim Beard all the time. So too many words for an old man like me.
Hey, you're younger than I am. Don't go there.
So we're going to talk about Detective Issue 77, and you went way back to the early days, and we're going to talk about a villain that I felt should have gotten more attention. And from what I was told by some of my readers over on my Batcave podcast blog, where I've been blogging about my journey through the Batman 40s, that this character does get a return in like the 80s or something. The Crime Doctor and his crime clinic.
All right. I know that he had two stories in the 40s. I did not know that he showed up again in the 80s.
Yeah, apparently he makes a return. Now, what was it about this that when I put the call out there and I said, hey, let's talk about, any issues that like scream, this could be a Batman 66. What was it about this, before we get into the details, that said to you, this is going to work?
Well, I think because he's colorful enough. Mm-hmm. And I really try to embrace the feeling of the show. So I'm like, what can be an over-the-top supervillain, but yet still remain within the confines of like a studio budget? And I'm like, well, they've got to have ambulances and doctor stuff and this and that. So it's like, yeah. And he's interesting. He's not a thug. He's not a gangster. He's somebody that helps them.
He is someone that helps them. He's another one of these odd villains like the minstrel. I don't want to resort to violence if I don't have to.
Right.
Which is something I like too. And there's also the whole dichotomy of the fact that he's still a practicing doctor, a practicing doctor.
Yeah, he has a secret identity, just like the heroes do.
Yes. Yeah. Now, what we're talking about here is the Crime Clinic. It was published May 21st, 1943, with writer Bill Finger, pencils by Bob Kane, and inker George Roussos. And just remember, folks, and I'll put the links again in the show notes, Mike's Amazing World of Comics, one of the best websites to just look up any issue of any comic. It's amazing how thorough this database is, and basically the order of any of your favorite characters that they've made appearances, not just Batman and Detective, but then Brave and the Bold and World's Finest, and even just like sub trips that they did. There was one there where he makes an appearance in the Early Justice Society of America, but it's just at the very end when he appears with $100,000 to donate to a charity, says like 2 lines and is gone. This website makes note of it so that you can actually have the chronology of Batman, Superman, whatever your character is, Spider-Man, it's amazing. It's amazing. And it goes through, all the major publishing companies. So yeah, check that out. Mike's Amazing World of Comics. All right. So let's see. How are we going to do this? Let's start first. Titles. What titles would you give this now? Because this is going to be a 2-parter.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to figure this as either like first or second season.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, no Batgirl. But I really tried to stick as close as I could to the source material while still formatting it for ABC and 20th Century Fox. The titles that I came up with, like the first episode would be called The Crime Clinic, and then the second one would be The Crime's Finish.
Okay. Fairly close in rhyme scheme there. That works. I think it really comes down to when you say first or second season, if you're going to go for a little darker, more of the moodier, then it's first season. When it starts getting a little lighter, a little brighter, and then depending on where in the second season and such, because you can definitely see it. It's weird that second season, when we get that Penguin episode in the middle, that was supposed to be the opener for the second season. It is definitely leaning more towards first season.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's sort of a bit of a jolt when you watch it.
It's a welcome jolt to me. It's like, oh yeah, we're back.
Yes. I know, especially the whole thing with Chief O'Hara in the trunk and being tossed in the water and all. Yeah. No, absolutely. It definitely is a jolt there and a welcome one. Now, do you want to get into the story first and then we'll talk about casting of our characters?
Maybe our audience could get it more in their head as to who we're talking about if we say who would be in there first.
Okay. All right. So obviously our main character, the crime doctor himself, Dr. Thorne, the big bad. You have 2 choices here that are interesting. Who are you thinking?
I do. And we kind of discussed this on Facebook a little bit. One is a dead ringer, but the other one is perhaps a bigger guest star. Mm-hmm. And a little younger, so he could actually be within the fights. Right. Is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So as far as look and mannerisms and character-wise is concerned, character actor John Hoyt was my first. And he can be seen in The Munsters, Wild Wild West, Perry Mason, Hogan's Heroes. He was on everything in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm. I would lean more towards him only because he also played the Doctor in one of the Star Trek pilots.
That's right. He did.
In fact, the original Star Trek pilot, if I'm not mistaken, with Jeffrey Hunter.
You are absolutely correct there.
Yeah.
And no, I think he's fine. I think he's a wonderful actor. I'm just wondering, now that's me thinking in my Hollywood sense, is he a big enough guest star?
Right.
To pull somebody in.
Right.
And that's why I also picked Canadian actor Lloyd Bachner.
Yes.
Who for all I know, he showed up on $6 Million Man.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, he was in everything as well. He was in Green Hornet.
Right. Right. It's funny because you say that it's John Hoyt big enough. And I think to myself, it didn't stop Dozier from casting people from time to time. For the Jim Beard's Subterranean Blue Grotto collection there of essays on the 3 seasons. For the 3rd season, I got to do The Siren and Joan Collins. And it was funny because when I do these, I approach them from historically what was going on at the time with the actors and such. So I go looking up in newspapers. I find old newspapers and stuff. And every single newspaper talks about the relatively obscure Joan Collins. And as they're saying that, they're pointing out, though, that her very popular Star Trek episode is being repeated. She's going to appear in this episode. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound that obscure. But if that's their perception, there's Dozier bringing her in as the Siren. So I don't know, like I totally can see, and especially Lloyd Bachner being younger, he would be, more effective in the fights and such. You could work with him in better. But I think John Hoyt could just as equally work as well, and I think his obscurity wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Well, he would be, to the audiences back then, he would have been instantly recognizable.
Right.
It's just, I'm thinking about the TV guide blurb, guest starring John Hoyt, and people go, who?
Yeah. Whereas Lloyd Bachner, you could definitely have recognized that name even by then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, personally, I'd go with John Hoyt just because of the look. I mean, he looks like the Crime Doctor.
He does.
He's got that sinister demeanor to him. And then, of course, when I was going through this, I'm like, well, he's got to have a gang.
Yes.
Now, I came up with names for the gang members. I didn't, except for the Mall, I didn't come up with anybody who would guest star or star along with them. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. But like, he had a gang of orderlies called Remedy and Crutch and Sling.
Okay.
All medical. And his Mall would be named Nurse Jenny. And I'm thinking, well, Marlo Thomas has just come onto the scene this year with the fall of '66 with that girl.
Okay.
So
I can definitely see that. And that would work better with Marlo Thomas and then the young Lloyd Bachner.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that.
Although the Penguin always had some fairly nice young ladies. Oh
yeah, no, and I mean she'd work just as well with John Hoyt. Don't get me wrong. I'm just thinking in terms of that there, and then I mean there isn't anybody I could really think of other than just as a nod because he just recently passed away. Joey Tata could be one of the orderlies.
He made 2 or 3 appearances on the show. So yeah, I mean, by all means.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, the nice thing about this Crime Doctor, unlike our Dr. Somnambula from the 2-part Catwoman episode there, he really plays up the doctor's role because, his getaway car is the ambulance and he's set up right there in his own doctor's office, with a back room. I love all that.
Yeah, it's like it's the room, it's the garage where he hides the ambulance. I tell you, I wanted to work in the Riddler thing that they did in the second season to where they're being pursued by the Batmobile, so he just calls a bunch of other ambulance services.
Yeah, I like that. That would work too. Yeah. Now, do you want to explain basically what this guy's method of operations is, or do you want me to do that?
Oh, by all means, go ahead, John.
Okay, so yeah, basically his whole method that, I mean, every one of Batman's arch villains, rogues gallery always have their sort of hook as to what makes them unique. And in this case with the Crime Doctor, he's the kind of person who writes out prescriptions, plans for crooks to follow in order to rob places, and then they get a percentage of the loot. And then, of course, he also will go out and make house calls by basically helping with certain crimes that maybe need a little bit more attention by him. It's not just a simple matter of following the prescription.
Right. And if he has to make a house call, he gets half of the loot.
Yes. I mean, it's a really interesting gimmick for this guy. I was hooked, as I say, I'm in the middle of 44 Batman right now that I'm reading. This is 1943, but I remember even reading saying, gosh, at the very end, there's a blurb that says, oh, he'll be back in Batman number 18. I'm like, yes. But then I went and looked up Mike's comics, and I said, oh, there's only like 2 more appearances though after this. That's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly could have been a reoccurring villain on the show.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, I've got the comic book here. I've got your notes, and I've got some ideas of my own. You really went into this, and like you said, you gave it the whole, if we're going to do this as a 66 show for 20th Century Fox, this is how we do it. Because the very beginning of the comic is just this whole big introduction of the Crime Doctor, how kind he is, how he looks out for people. He's looking out for this banker who may have appendicitis, and the banker is like, I'm too busy to deal with this right now and such. But then we turn and we see his side gig or his alternate lifestyle as he's also filling out these prescriptions. Now, this is where you add, though, the little twist with Jenny, the nurse, because usually it's one of his goons that go out and do the legwork in terms of finding clients and then getting the fingerprints and all that. Jenny's the one who's sort of the go-between here, which is nice.
Right. Yeah. I think what I did was, I looked at it as I had to condense. Mm-hmm. We've got 22 to 25 minutes to get everything across. And it's like, well, I'm not going to have her go out and get fingerprints and this, that, and the other. Or that. So my beginning of this was that there is a crime in progress, mm-hmm. and the crooks get stuck. It's like, oh gosh, there's this complication that we didn't realize. So mm-hmm. what are we going to do? I have no ideas. And it's like, we got to call the crime clinic. And it just comes to a nice doctor's office, and there's Nurse Jenny. Hi, the doctor will see you in a few minutes. Blah blah blah. Bing! Hello. And her demeanor changes a little bit. Mm. Okay. Yeah, hold on. And she goes to the crime file. And she looks through to make sure this person's the real deal, pulls their card, and summons the doctor, gives him the heads up.
Right.
And he writes the prescription. The thing goes very successful for the crooks. It's like, oh, this oversight. He was right. This is what we do. And this just keeps happening and happening and happening. And finally, Commissioner Gordon and Chief O'Hara, it's like, well, what's going on with this crime wave? Anything to add, John?
I was going to say what I thought, though, was interesting, because there was one thing you added, though, to this to sort of, I guess, give Batman a bit more of a clue, is that, when the criminals run off after their successful robbery, one of them drops an ID card, a patient's ID card.
Yes.
That's not in the comic.
That's not in the comic, but I mean, yeah, that's how I tie it all together, mm-hmm. is that anybody who uses his services, they get an ID card. It's like a membership card.
Right.
And it's probably the one where, the crook had to pull it out because he called the crime doctor and he had to give his ID and all that over the phone.
Right.
And he just forgot it, or it didn't go back into his pocket correctly or something. And that was found at the scene of the crime.
Because I had originally, when I was writing it, I was like, that basically when, you've got all these different crimes and Gordon and O'Hara are stumped, as they usually tend to be, but more so here, because it's like, wait a minute, these perfect crimes are being pulled off, but it's by this gang and this gang and this gang. How are they all getting so smart all of a sudden here and such? And I just originally said Batman, surmises that it's one person who, has been helping them all along. But having the medical ID then gives him sort of something more to it, like, maybe there's somebody with a medical background, or I don't know, something like. So I really did like the idea of the dropping the ID card.
Well, yeah, and I think I even threw in a line there, because this was very apropos for the show back then, is that they would allude to something, O'Hara or Commissioner Gordon would say something that's like, because these things are being performed like with the precision of a surgeon.
Yes. Not realizing they're right on the nose.
Right.
Yeah. So, of course, Gordon now has to call in Batman. And again, I didn't even think about this in the whole thing here, but yeah, and this places it even more so firmly in the first season, stately Wayne Manor. And like you said, you got Bruce and Dick discussing this medical lecture and Harriet's going to be taking in when the call comes through. It's perfect. Because again, and we're running with the theme throughout this whole thing of medicine.
Right. I mean, he's got de-aging, or he's got this thing about vitamins, and she's very interested or whatever, and she's going to go see him that night, not knowing that's actually the doctor.
Yes. Yes. And you do this also, because I was kind of just jumping them to the next scene. You actually have them go to headquarters, which I did have them do, but then I was having them go straight to the crime, like basically on patrol or something. Instead, no, you bring them back and have them work on the back computer, which works because, again, that's another element. All right, we've done our powwow with Gordon. Now let's go back and let's run the clues through the back computer and see what we come out with.
I'm looking at my notes. Mm-hmm. You'll have to forgive me. Okay. Yes, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, this was found on the scene. It's like, strange, a medical ID card with the crook's name on it.
Yeah.
This is interesting. We'll take this back to the Batcave if it's okay, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
I trust you implicitly, Caped Crusader.
But meanwhile, we're setting up now our next, which would be the scene from the comic book there, as the crime doctor has to pay a house call because they're having another issue with a crime in progress at the time. But this is one that he needs to be on site for. I love this.
Right. I pictured this as being very first season, this part right here, because it goes a little different than the usual cookie cutter that the second season did.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on is that the doctor's getting his loot from the previous crime, but he's chastising the guy for losing his ID card. I mean, maybe he has to mark it every time or something.
Right.
And it's like, but before, anything further from that can happen, Nurse Jenny comes in with an emergency call for this particular thing.
Right.
Now, something that I didn't put in the notes because I didn't have time, but part of his MO is to have chloroform bombs that he makes.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties into the next robbery that he's going to help on, and it also ties into the cliffhanger that I was thinking of.
Right.
So I think he shoos the crook out of there. He finds out what it's going to be, and all of his cronies pile into his ambulance.
Right.
To take off for the next crime.
Right. Now, here's my question to you, because you say we'll go back and we'll check the back computer and stuff. When the ambulance is passing by the Batmobile at a fast speed, is that them heading back to the Batcave? So they haven't even gotten back.
Yes, this is very first season. This is it happening while they're on their way back.
Right.
They're just going through the streets, and it's like, my gosh, Batman, shouldn't he have a siren and his lights on going this fast?
Yep.
And Batman's concerned. It's like this. Yeah, that's highly, that's not right, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Emergency bat turn.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love that. I could see the two of them, Adam and Bert, playing that up. Yep. Hold tight. Bat turn.
Yeah. It's up to every citizen, whether they're an emergency vehicle or not, to obey the traffic laws.
Yes. So, of course, then they go follow the ambulance, which pulls up to the warehouse. And the doctor and his team have met up now with those crooks. They all go inside. Batman and Robin go and park, and this is following pretty close to the comic there. But here I like this because you've got him attaching the tracker to the ambulance ahead of time. That didn't happen in the comic either.
No,
he does eventually. Yes. But
well, I mean, especially first season, he had some forethought sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, this isn't his first rodeo. This isn't his first cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's happening. And I'm just thinking of those beautiful old Cadillac ambulances they had back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they could probably use the one from King Tut.
That's true. Yeah. There you go.
So, yeah, I mean, meanwhile,
inside the warehouse, we're seeing those bombs being put to use.
Yeah, they're putting on their surgical masks so they're not recognized, but they're also putting on gas masks. and they've got the chloroform balls or bombs or whatever, and they're taking out the security guards.
Right.
So that they can get to the safe or the furs or whatever's stored in this warehouse.
Right. Now, okay, let me ask you this. Would Batman and Robin be coming in with the masks as well? Like maybe just beforehand, Batman catches an odor as they're about to jump in and he's like, put on your mask, just to be safe. So now we're all in masks as the bat fight goes on.
They are in the respirators. How they notice it, I mean, he could have just cracked open the door just a little bit to see what the situation was and got a whiff of what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, get on your respirator, Robin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. So big bat fight, and as in the comic, I mean, I don't know how far, because first season, we didn't get too extravagant with the sets in terms of the Bill Finger style stuff. That wasn't first season. That was more second season. Right, so I don't know if we'd have like the giant toys that they've got, the rubber stock, the balls and all, but who knows? Maybe some of that stuff would be there.
Some of it could be. I kind of took that out because we weren't in the war at this point of the 66.
Right.
We would have had the whole rubber rations and, that's really important and all that. So, the loot could have been changed up for something, bigger or better that's being stored there.
Right.
But yeah, huge bat fight. The crooks do escape, but of course, their ambulance has got a tracker on it.
Mm-hmm. But I like this too, because as a shortcut in the second season and definitely in the third, you would just have them follow in the Batmobile. But first season, we'll go back. We'll triangulate the signal. We're going to use the giant lucite map, which I love my giant lucite map. So,
right. Boy, you're paying better attention to my notes than I. Yeah, they take off, and that's right. It's like, well, we've got to find out where this is on the map. The location. So yes, they do have to go back to the Batmobile and triangulate out the spot of where this vehicle is sitting now.
Mm-hmm. So now here's the thing, because up until this point, they don't recognize the Doctor. He's been wearing a surgical mask. It's when they finally get to the lucite map and, Batman realizes this is Dr. Thorne, a preeminent physician in Gotham City. There's something weird about this. But then again, there is the medical theme, so it's making sense. So off they go in the Batmobile.
Right. And somewhere between this time, maybe at the getaway, Thorne is explaining to somebody, is like, why are you doing this, Doc? You're a great surgeon or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he is explaining his love of crime.
Right.
So people are like, what's this guy doing?
He must make enough money as a physician. If he's a preeminent doctor in Gotham City.
Yeah. He just enjoys the process.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And so I think we go back to the back room of the doctor's office, and he's fretting some because this is the first black mark against his crime clinic.
Yes.
So he's discussing that with his cronies.
Now, would you have a little scene with Batman and Robin sort of being held back or some sort of thing with Nurse Jenny before they go further on?
That is a very good question, because she could tip the Doctor off.
Mm-hmm.
She might have a floor button that just buzzes to the back.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only thing is, then that would set you up for either you'd go straight to trap and you wouldn't get, and frankly, the bat fight in the comic here is really cool simply because, we get a scene of Batman and the Doctor fighting in front of the X-ray machine. So you see their skeletal outlines. And then we've got the reflector thing that the Doctor has that he can use to blind Batman. I thought that was all really cool.
And I think all that can be incorporated into the episode's secondary bat fight that leads up to the cliffhanger.
Okay. So yeah.
It's like, gosh, it's deserted in here, but they're all behind like the medical screen or whatever.
Okay.
You know?
That's true. There have been times where the villains have been tipped off also in the series proper, and all they do is just ambush and fight instead of like, let's drop the net on them like sometimes they do.
Right. No, I definitely think that this could be a great action piece where, you know, they're fighting the orderlies, they're fighting up against the ambulance, they're turning on the X-ray machine by accident, and you're getting an X-ray fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he blinds either Robin or Batman with his mirror, his forehead mirror there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what eventually happens, I think, is that they get taken out by the chloroform bomb.
Right. They do. Well, see, that's the thing. They get taken out by the chloroform bomb here. In the comic, there is this thing, and you took it out. The surgery.
Yes.
You took that out. I would have thought maybe that would have been, especially like if he's like, Batman, will you assist me? And we could have gotten another scene of Batman putting surgical gloves over his gloves.
I mean, it also would have tied into the whole Thomas Wayne thing and the fact that Batman knows medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I didn't like taking out, but interior wise, I'm thinking 22 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand.
And that's the only reason why I condensed a lot of this. And the problem is that this story is so front loaded that it gets a little light on the second episode.
Yes. But that's a lot of these early Batman comics. There's a lot of them where you're like, oh, this is going so well. And here's the cliffhanger. And then it's like, whoosh. Now you have to pad part 2 a little bit in order to make this work.
Marcia, Queen of Diamonds.
Okay, so here's one thing that I found, because the doctor even says, I don't want to hurt you. I'm a doctor first. I mean, I will if I have to, but I don't want to. So my question to you is, should he be the one who sets up the cliffhanger trap that's going to kill them? Or perhaps what he does is he decides to abandon his hideout here and leave them behind, and they'll wake up and it's like, we'll be done with them. But then like his cronies are like, we can't lose this opportunity. We need to do something.
That's a good, you actually got about half of what I was thinking.
Okay.
That I didn't get down in my notes. How it plays out in my head, John, is that they get tied up with like the surgical gauze or something like that.
Right.
And the doctor isn't going to kill them. That's not his modus operandi. He will not plan a murder for anybody, and he's like, well, my, blah, blah, blah has been blown, this and that, but we do have another hideout, we'll leave them here. But what we don't see is that one of the orderlies is happened to make more chloroform bombs, and he accidentally sets the bottle too close to the edge of the table.
Okay.
So when the ambulance leaves and the door closes, it falls over, filling that enclosed room with deadly gas.
Ah, okay. So you're making it more of an accidental cliffhanger rather than something done. See, because I was thinking then, like later, the doctor would get upset with his villain, with his gang member there. But okay, all right. So we make it accidental.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just different enough that it's like it wasn't intended.
Okay.
But, I mean, they're still in dire danger.
Sure, absolutely. Now, would you use the resolution as in the comic where it's like, Batman is able to use the gas to also create a fire and then, free his bonds?
That's possible. And I have to say, I hate the fact that I think this way, because I think like a network executive. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, we don't want to see kids lighting fires.
Okay. All right. Fair.
I mean, so what I did think it would be, and this is still kind of dangerous because you don't want kids mimicking this, is that the smashed bottle provides the cut glass for Batman to get out of his bonds.
Okay. All right, that works.
And he's able to drag Robin out after getting the garage door open to fresh air.
All right. So once they freed themselves, bat twirl, they're outside. Robin's taking deep gulps of air, and
gosh, goodness, just great H2O.
Yes,
not water. That's water.
That's water.
Yeah, I'll have that in my lungs.
And I would assume we would keep this whole element there with the doctor giving the throwaway clue about the Philosopher's Stone and all that.
Yes, that would be. I mean, I think that they're both conscious when they're tied up and those guys are getting ready to leave. Mm-hmm. It's like, besides, after I, consort with this Philosopher's Stone tonight, we'll be rich, you'll be rich beyond your dreams, man.
Right. Right.
So it's like, Philosopher's Stone. What did he mean by that, Batman?
And of course, Batman twigs onto it because, the whole thing of the Philosopher's Stone being, what was it? The mythical object that's able to turn anything worthless into gold. So he just read about the process. I mean, my only thinking there is, instead of him jumping right to the conclusion about the process, perhaps another consult with the Bat computer just to pad this out a little bit, where we get the scene where Robin's always given, like, he's sitting there going, the Omar of so and so, and he's like, no, not that one. And then they go through. I don't know.
What didn't make it into my notes because I didn't have time to do this is that they do head back to the Batcave.
Okay,
because they're at the moment they know who it is, but they don't know where he's at.
Right.
But the doctor is continuing on with his scheme, sure. And he bursts into this guy's house, this scientist's house.
Yes.
And he's getting this formula for how to rearrange atoms to turn that into gold. Mm-hmm. And I guess my thought, and like I said, this is where it's all off the top of the dome here because I didn't get it written down, but the scientist does get a hold of the police, after he revives or whatever.
Right.
Police get a hold of Batman, and it's like, why would he want the formula for this, Batman? Of course.
Now the question then becomes, do we just have him go straight to the Atom Smasher, or do we once again have there's several areas he could be type deal?
Well, I think they have to at least find out via the Bat computer or the map or whatever. It's like, well, where could he possibly go to get this thing done?
Right.
There can't be that many places in Gotham City.
Mm-hmm. Right. Could be something like we just recently did in Monster Squad, where they decided to, because there were 6 movie studios in the city, 6. Wow. And it was like, yeah, I know. Right. And they go, we'll go to the 3 closest ones first, and then we'll spread out from there. And it turns out that the, and each of the monsters go to one of the 3, but it turns out the one that's even closest to where the crime scene was committed was the one where the bad guys were hiding out. So, I mean, it might be a case of the doctor's so eager to get this going that he goes to the closest atom smashing place that, from where the scientist lives, or for that matter, maybe even the scientist is like, this is where I work. So maybe you want to try that first.
Yeah. Maybe they contact the doctor. I mean, they used to get help from the people, mm-hmm. Sometimes.
Right.
Of course, what could also be something, how we always like to inject a little humor into it. It could have been, gosh, there's 15 Atom Smashers here in Gotham City, Batman. Which one could it be? Because it's always some inflated number.
Yes. Yep. Or for that matter, you could even, if you wanted to turn this into a second season episode, suddenly, who's the professor who came up with this invention? Professor Overbeck.
Oh, yeah.
There's possibilities. There's definitely possibilities, but it all leads to them having this final showdown at the Atom Smasher. Now, the panels we see for the comic, this place is huge. It's a large complex. We're not going to get that with Batman. So how do we do this so that at least it looks realistic to a certain extent?
I think we move in a lot of computers from the Batcave.
Okay.
For props. And you remember the nuclear power plant props or whatever from the second season. You probably reconfigure those somehow.
Okay.
So you just get it looking scientific-y.
Okay.
Maybe even a lab table full of colored chemicals.
Maybe it's just the control area. We don't necessarily have to show the smelter itself. Yeah,
you don't see the other room. It's just where everything's done.
Right.
Maybe we just get from their point of view, we get flashes of light or something if they're trying to do it, and change something.
Right. The only thing is that in doing that, you miss out on one element of the whole bat fight. I mean, we could definitely have the bat fight, Batman fighting the Doctor, Robin taking on the goons and stuff. But in the comic, the Doctor is knocked off this high platform and he falls into the river below, and Batman dives in after him. So we'd have to remove all that here.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. Number one, it's way too dangerous. And it would probably be a real pain in the neck to try to find someplace like that.
Right.
We could have the Doctor go to the roof. It's like he's trying to find a way, he's trying to find a way out.
Right.
And Batman, no, I'll get him.
Batman, he's getting away.
No,
he's not.
and maybe they have that fight up there on the roof. The Doctor loses his balance, but Batman grabs his coat and makes sure he doesn't fall. And it's like, you saved my life.
Right.
It's like any man who practices medicine can't be all bad.
Well, also there was one other way I was thinking, and it would make more sense at the end than it did at the beginning.
Okay.
What if in the course of all this, and I know this is extreme, but it's first season, and we've seen things like this. And actually, we even saw it in the second season. Robin gets shot, and the Doctor stops everything to save his life. Ooh, the look on your face.
Well, I mean, I'm not against it.
Right.
It's, again,
very extreme, and like you say, you're also thinking 1960s and what the networks would be thinking in the kids. I get all that, but Shame does shoot Robin in the ankle.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, one of his orderlies could have gotten careless,
right?
Or just, I'm not sticking with this no killing stuff. I'm getting out of here,
right?
And I'm just thinking, time wise, that could eat up a decent chunk of time,
right?
And that wouldn't be so much padding, and that would be a surgery part in there.
Right.
And maybe the Doctor, I don't know, surrenders after that, or Batman takes him in after helping. It's like, I'll do everything I can.
Right. Exactly. I think it would be more like he would say, I just can't let you go. I owe you everything for saving Robin, but you have to serve justice. Like Batman would still be true to his calling. Unlike Batman in the 40s, who would let Catwoman go every once in a while. Robin's like going, you did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah. No, Robin's not an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Burt Ward called him out in a couple of episodes for that. It's like, hey, what's going on here, Batman?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that might be a good way to end it, is that they do get captured. Maybe that one idiot does get away, the orderly, but the main bad has been captured because his calling did mean that he stayed behind to help Robin.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I always found that fascinating. It's like, Batman, I need your assistance, he says. And Batman helps him. It's like, okay, whatever. Not even a momentary, I don't know about this, type thing. He's Batman. It's like, I got you.
Or it could be, during the fight, Batman goes, Robin, he just stops. And the Doctor is PO'd and cold cocks the guy that shot him.
Right.
It's like, here, help me get him on this table.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he'll be okay. It's a flesh wound, but we'll be able to extract this.
Now there's just one element, because now we're coming to, he's captured. Batman has to turn him in regretfully. Gordon and O'Hara show up. We would have been here sooner, but that type of deal. Now you mentioned at the beginning Aunt Harriet going to a medical lecture, and possibly it even being Thorne. Would we turn around and then be like, she comes home disappointed that she missed it because he never showed up because he was taking that emergency call?
Yeah, my thinking is that we're back at Stately Wayne Manor, and she comes through the front door, and it's like, it's just so, it's so disappointing, Bruce. They had to cancel the lecture. The doctor turned out to be a crook.
Yeah, okay, all right. So she even is aware of it, even better. Yeah.
And and of course they're all in on it, and it's like,
the poor man, all that talent. Yeah.
Well, maybe he'll be able to put that to use at the prison hospital.
Yes. There you go. And that kind of using the ending there, that where Batman at the end of the comic is like, well, we know where we can go for a doctor at any time because he'll be staying in prison for a while. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah. He gets the black and white striped doctor's coat.
Yes. Oh man. Okay, so let me ask you this. Anything else from the issue that we didn't address, or anything in particular that needs to be added to this? I think you really fleshed this thing out.
Well, it was an interesting assignment because I would have loved to have seen many of these stories turned into the TV show. It's just, how do you format it?
Right.
And your thing at the very end at least got a little surgery in.
Yes.
So that was a good plus. And that's what, to me, it makes it seem to be more first season, because there's an element of danger.
The thing I'm noticing here as we're doing these, and I'm doing these all over the place, in terms of, they're going to be released in the order of the issues. So you're actually going to be one of the front end ones, but I've already recorded a couple of them. But the thing I'm noticing here is, I think the biggest mistake the Batman TV series did was try to go it alone and not use they could have still done, Egghead, and they could have worked those in as well. But then when they would do a Joker episode, they did their own Joker stuff. They should have stuck at more so to the source material. Even if they didn't like a certain villain, they could have even, shaped it and molded it for a Louis the Lilac or a Siren or something. I just feel, because I'm like, every one of the ones I've done so far, and I've done 3, you're the 3rd, even though you're going to be one of the early ones, that I'm releasing. They all come across like, I could so see this, and this would have been so great as a Batman episode. And it's a shame. And instead we get Marcia, Queen of Diamonds, or Nora Clavicle, or,
right.
Which have their merits too, and we've talked about them.
Nora's got merits. No, I kid. No, I wish
he's not.
I wish they'd stuck to the stories, because the writing, it's bizarre enough as it is.
Exactly. And they had, 20 years, a little over 20 years, 25 years of material they could have worked with. That show could have gone on another couple of seasons if they just, look at it now. That's what, the CW does. That's what, Marvel's doing with their movies. They're all variations of the source material. They're not sitting there and trying to reinvent the wheel,
right?
With what they do. And it works, because that's what brings the hardcore fan, because they're like, I remember this. I know that. I see that. And then the casual fan at least can then still come in and enjoy it as well.
Right. I think part of the problem from back then, and they probably ran into this, is that, number one, there was a ton of gangster stories back then.
That's the problem.
That would have been interesting, but on the complete other end of it, you have colorful villains, but their faces are hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And what actor's going to want to go, what do you mean I'm not being seen?
Right.
So you'd have to have a lot of them at the hideout without the masks on, and
because I just think about like this, the Cavalier, Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yep.
I didn't think I was going to like them, and I do.
The motif is all there. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the Cavalier. How many swashbuckling movies did they make? How hard would it be to put together that costume?
Sure. Absolutely. And certainly would have been a lot better than the Archer.
Yeah, that was just a missed opportunity. Which is sad because Art Carney's Art Carney.
Yeah.
But something there just did not gel.
No, it didn't. It didn't gel.
I wish they hadn't led the second. If they'd led the second season with the Catwoman episode, I think it would have been a lot stronger.
I think so too. I think that really it just sort of like people like tuned in and were like, and then we got Catwoman. Okay. And then they bring in Minstrel. And I love the Minstrel. I love that episode. But unfortunately, you watch it and you've just watched Archer 2 weeks beforehand and the similar with the tights and everything. It could, and as a kid, I was turned off. I came to appreciate Minstrel as an adult.
Oh yeah, it's a great episode. It's a great story. But you're right; it's too much of having a Renaissance fair back to back.
Right, exactly. And after the first one being such a letdown, you don't pay as much attention to the nuances with the Minstrel.
Yeah, even though it's genius, even though it's a very tight story.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just kind of like, Art Carney's mind just wasn't in it or whatever it was. And it's just, this is how you started it. Can you imagine if they started with that Penguin episode?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right.
They would have gone till 1970.
Yeah. That Penguin story was amazing. It really was.
And that was a comic book story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, sure. Oh, yeah. And then the funny thing is when you look at the promos that they used for the beginning of the second season on ABC, most of the material is from the Penguin story. And it's like, you're not going to see that kids till like January, February. So
right.
Sit back. Oh, man.
Well, it's 2020 hindsight. They didn't know.
No, they didn't. Absolutely not. I get it all. They weren't also expecting, two men in their 50s to be talking about it in 2022. So, like this in this kind of a medium.
Right. It's like, what the hell's the matter with you guys? Shouldn't you be watching football?
Oh man. All right. Well, that's going to bring us in. I think this would be a really solid episode. We've got our actors, we've got our titles, we've worked in our extra little features there that we need in order to make this gel more with 66 Batman. So that's another solid entry in the book here. Before we go though, and before we wrap things up here, Roberts, how are things going over on your Batman page over on Facebook? You were quiet for a little while, but I noticed you started posting again.
Yeah, it's I'm more or less the custodian at this point. As long as everybody obeys the rules, it's like guys have fun. But I've been, I come across something interesting or I have an interesting topic. Yeah, I'll put it on there. It's just it comes and goes. I've had it's been a couple of tough years with certain things going on, and
sure.
You and I haven't talked in quite a while,
right?
So I'm looking forward to getting back into more of it.
Yes, and getting back into our own series here, which got a little bit waylaid there. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and we've discovered some new possible bombs.
I think we've found some fun stuff. We just have to sit down and check them out.
Mm-hmm. There's one. I think I sent you the link for a scene. I don't know if it's the whole movie or if it's just a fantasy sequence called Mr. Batman, a Bollywood movie.
I'll have to. You may have to send that again. I'm not sure that I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, this I must see. It is, Bollywood. He's got a mustache, but he's wearing the Adam West costume. Yeah.
Oh, God.
But I don't know if it's just a sequence, like a fantasy sequence, because I everything I've tracked down so far, when people mention, oh, that's from this movie, I'm like going, well, there's no other Batman in it other than this moment. So maybe that's all there is to it. So
yeah.
I
mean, maybe it may come to a point where some of what we do is just a clip show of
oh, and this is from this and this is from that. Sure.
Yeah. And we discussed 2 or 3 of them for one show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but we will definitely be getting back into that, to the swing of things with that.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate everything that you and Jim and everybody else have been doing on the podcast. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to listen to all of these. Mm-hmm. This is going out during the holiday time.
Yes. So as you're going around, my thinking was as you're going around doing your shopping or what have you, or visiting relatives, and you got those long trips, you'll have, even if you don't listen to them every day, you will have a pile of Batcave episodes to keep you company during the holidays. So,
including Boxing Day.
No. Yes. Yeah. Or as we like to call it here, Bat Fight Day.
Bat Fight Day. But so I mean, there's that, and I think you do have something else planned for a few of us, but I won't go into what that is.
Yeah, no, that's going to be our capper at the end of this all here for Christmas Eve. So stay tuned. Our 12th day of Batmas. Yeah.
So no, I will be back in one form or another.
Yes, you will. Indeed, you will, sir. So, folks,
something that's worse than norclavicle,
or better, because that's been our gauge.
Or better, yeah,
or better. We've had a few we've said are better than norclavicle.
Yeah, but knowing what we're talking about as far as that special capper is concerned.
Oh, well, that is concerned. That's a different matter altogether. We'll get to that. Oh, no, we'll definitely get to that. So, folks, as Robert says here, make sure you're staying tuned. Make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast catcher, or making sure you're following us over at the Batcave Podcast on Facebook or over at the thebatcavepodcast.com, where our next episode will be coming along tomorrow. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Robert, everyone, take care.
Take care, John.
Alfred, stop the car.
Come what may. Merry Christmas, Mr. Wayne.
Merry Christmas, Albert. Goodwill toward men.